Hey everyone, my name is Andrew Lindroth, and I was chosen to talk about subliminal perception. Let's look at the word perception before we go on. Perception is the process of acquiring, interpreting, selecting, and organizing sensory information. And that came from Wikipedia off a definition for perception. Now let's move on here now that we have an idea of what perception is. And let's move on to basic information on subliminal. Subliminal, the reason why this makes the difference with perception is that subliminal happens without us noticing. So things are happening around us, there are pictures, there are subliminal messages and everything that we see, and whether or not we're being persuaded by it is the big question, but the fact that we even notice it. It is used for persuasion a lot of the times, and like I said, the big question that a lot of these scientists have been asking for many, many years is, does subliminal perception or subliminal messages really exist? Because are they impacting results that much? As we look on this slide, we see some examples of it. A lot of the examples that are being used have the word sex in it. As we look at the gin ad right here, the ice cubes, the way it's spelled out, we didn't notice that. Same thing when you look at the top right at the Lion King. It says sex anyways, and with all that dust up in the air. And that's some things we wouldn't notice. And to the left, we notice the beer bottles in the shape of, it looks like a female's butt. And to these companies, they're using these to persuade us. Whether or not it works, I don't really know. Personally, it does it for me, but that is the big question that is being asked. We're going to move on here. On this next slide, we see subjective or objective. This is a big question that is being asked and has been a hot topic debate since the 1980s. Now, let's pay attention here. Subjective threshold, that is the one that has to be passed for a stimulus to enter a conscious awareness, okay? And then objective threshold has to be passed for a stimulus to be sensed, that is to enter the appropriate sensory system. So basically, if the objective threshold is not passed, we do not have perception. If the objective threshold is passed, but the subjective is not, we have subliminal perception. So if the subjective is passed as well, we have a conscious perception. So of course we're looking at subliminal perception here. So if the objective threshold is passed but the subjective is not, we have subliminal perception. So that is the difference between those two, and we look at that a lot in comparing subliminal perception between subjective or objective, and that came right from the second article that I'll have referenced in my references, that is under Cheeseman and Merkel. All right. And we'll move on here. We'll go over to the next slide, and this talks about the empirical studies. This is what we've been waiting for, to see what tests have been ran here and what studies have been shown. And Beans and Gutkin, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. So in this paper it says, Beans and Gutkin, 1989, analyzed the relationship between free association and different types of music masking subliminal messages. So they used mellow music and frantic music, so very fast-paced music. The objective was to verify which kind of music yielded more responses from the subjects. After they did the test, they indicated that a lot more people liked the mellow music, and indicated different types of music resulted in different responses. So a lot more with the mellow type of music. We go over to the second one. I don't know how to pronounce it. It starts with a D. They conducted a study to enhance self-esteem. When doing this, they used the words, and they had 20 subjects listen to a 20-minute audio cassette tape with subliminal message each night for 4 weeks before they went to sleep. In the end here, when they're getting all of this results back, it shows a significant difference between the two groups of people. It says here that the authors concluded that the existence of subliminal perception was demonstrated by the results. So to these guys, subliminal perception did work, especially when it came to self-esteem, and they were listening to a audio on their headphones for 20 minutes. There's been more studies that have been gone on as well, and we will move on to the last one here. So we go to the last slide. So the findings and conclusions. So there are some different types of findings Many scientists believe that subliminal perception does not exist, but it does, and it has shown that it does in a way that it affects more differently than us just wanting to purchase an item. So when we see sex, it's not necessarily that's what drives us in. It's more of um, just a distraction around you, and um, so while we think that when we read sex, it doesn't, that's not what convinces us at all to buy the product, and it doesn't, we don't notice it. But it's the small things that are being widespread and used by media and advertising and all this, like other companies and agencies, and even by the federal government itself. I mean, Wilson Key, the man right here on the screen, says it all. Um, the strengths and weaknesses in these two articles, I really enjoyed both of them. They were very in depth, very long as well, plenty of information. Some of the experiments to me didn't make sense what they were trying to find. That would be a whole nother discussion. But those were the only weaknesses that I saw. Is that some of the experiments, I don't know how that really lined up with subliminal perception or really what they were finding. But other than that, everything was very well organized, very easy to read, and I did learn a lot about subliminal perception. And it's up to you to decide if you think it's real or not, and if it's effective or it isn't. So thank you.